Hi, it's John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and I want to welcome you to this Master Your Life podcast, where we have an opportunity to hear from Black Belt masters in their chosen art, profession, or trade. Today, you're going to have an opportunity to hear from a young man that's become a personal friend. We met about a year ago in a conference that we were attending online, have developed a unique relationship. We've been accountability partners with part of a mastermind group that we're both involved with. And I've been really impressed with what this young man brings to the table. So let me take just a moment. Let me share just a brief introduction that Simone shared with me. And just it's a great way to introduce him and let you know what he's about and what we're going to be talking about in this episode today. So 100 million new businesses start every year. 90% of them fail within 3 years. So how do you create a sustainable business? That is Simone Vincinze's secret sauce. He's a multi-award winning serial entrepreneur and author who's helped people launch more than 500 profitable businesses before he reached the age of 30. Now, if you look at this young man, I don't think he's much past 30 at this point, but he's done a lot in this little bit of time he's been on the earth. Simone writes for Forbes, for Entrepreneur Magazine, and is regularly featured on TV and radio. Today, he's going to share how you can become an authority in your field and get known, get paid, and make an impact. Simone, I want to say welcome to the group and glad to have you on our podcast today.
It's great to be here, John. And yes, as you mentioned on the interview, on the introduction, we develop a personal relationship, personal friendship, which I really cherish. And it's great to be here and to be connected with you.
Absolutely. Well, man, I love the topic that we're going to be talking about today because becoming an authority figure and an expert is something I'm personally passionate about. And those that have been following my blog or following my podcast for some time know this is an area that we've spent some time talking about in the past about the importance of how you as an individual stand out in the crowd. Because out of all the people that an individual could choose from to do business, you've got to be able to answer the question as to why do business with you. And that's where becoming an authority figure and an expert come from. So Simone, where did this passion for teaching people to really become this expert authority figure, where did that start for you?
Well, there are two parts to this answer. The first part is the beginning. I was completely unknown. So if you think about it, I'm Italian originally. I moved to the UK when I was 20. And as any good Italian moving to a new country, what do? Work in restaurants, right? So I was true to the stereotype. Started working in a restaurant. And once I was in a particular restaurant, the owner saw something in me that I couldn't see about myself. And he said, I think you can do way more than what you think you're capable of. And he started introducing me to go to some seminars and reading some books. And that's where I started the journey of personal development. I was really lucky to be introduced to this particular path at the age of 20. And then at that point, I decided to start my first business, which after I wanted to start sharing what I've learned in schools with kids. I was passionate about kids. I was passionate about young people. It's something that I was doing in my church when I was in my teens, and I was always teaching to kids. And I said, that would be such a great way to start. It will help me hone my speaking skills. It will help me make a difference, do something that I love, and at the same time, connect with great people. The problem was that no one knew me. Outside my circle in the catering industry, in one restaurant since I moved to London, then I was a nobody. And my English wasn't that great even at the time. So I really had to start understanding what does it take to actually build a reputation from scratch? What does it take to get seen? What does it take to get known? What does it take to be taken seriously, in particular because of my baby face as well? So that's where it all started. That was the first step.
So on the journey that you started on, what were some of the initial struggles and some of the initial challenges that you had to overcome besides essentially being invisible to the people that didn't know you? You had a language barrier that you were working on. What were some of the original, I do a lot of work with John Maxwell, and John says, great leaders fail early, they fail often, but they learn from their failures so that they don't repeat those mistakes and have an opportunity to grow and become better. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So as you think back to the early days of you getting started, and I want to come back because I know you've done a TED Talk, and I want to talk about that in a minute as well.
Yeah.
But what were some of your early failures, and what did you learn from those?
Oh my God, where should I start? I failed at literally everything. Let's talk when I started delivering, I think in schools, not having enough material prepared for kids. After a few years in restaurants, I was a bit out of touch with what it takes actually to lead a class of students. And most of the time I would have never delivered something for more than like an hour or two. So I got dumped in the school to deliver a program that wasn't mine, that was from this organization that I was working on their behalf, going to that school. And literally the way this organization build their material is to cover about an hour to an hour and a half of teaching and lessons. All the rest is up to the facilitator. Now, I had 5 hours with the same class, so they wouldn't change, they wouldn't move to cover that material. So now I had to, literally what I did, we went through all the material for the day, and that was an hour and a half in. So I look at the watch and I was like, I got 3.5 hours and I don't have a bloody clue of what am I going to do right now. So I started thinking about all the games that I could play with the kids. I got them to start coming on the like in teaching some games. But then you know how kids are, like after half an hour, they got all bored about playing games. So it was awkward. It was a car crash. And what an experience. I left with my tail between the legs, head down. But what that experience told me is to be over prepared, to always have, if I have to deliver a session of an hour, have at least 5 hours of material ready that I can dip in and out, that I can tap into. And I've been doing that since. So being over prepared is better than being just prepared.
Yeah, I can relate to that. One of my first trips to Africa, I went to the country of Zambia and was asked to be part of a group that was teaching a conference to pastors, church leaders, and business owners. And we were there for 5 days. And so they told me I would be teaching 3 1-hour sessions. So I prepared 3 1-hour sessions. And when I got there at the end of the hour, the next speaker hadn't showed up. And as a result of that, they looked over and said, well, why don't you continue? And it's that deer in the headlights look of, oh my goodness, I don't have anything else to deliver. And, just having to reach in your back pocket and hoping you can find something there. You learn very quickly to make sure that you're always prepared and then some more. So that's a great, valuable lesson. What's another failure that you've learned from that's really helped you in your practice today?
That's let's say fast forward 6 years from that moment. So then at that point, then I was in business for about 6 years. And we were already running a decent sized business. I think we're talking about in dollars, about $300,000 a year kind of business. And we decided to run an international retreat for our clients. So let's go to Thailand. We hired this three villas, 3 private villas in the front of the ocean. We had a private beach. Every villa had a private chef. We went all out. And we managed to find the most expensive thing that we could find there, because in our mind, we thought we could fill that retreat up. Expectation and reality didn't match. One, because we actually decided to organize this international retreat in 3 months. And people need more than 3 months to travel to the other side of the world and make that decision and make an investment for, like, we wanted to sell tickets for about $10,000 for the week. And people don't make that kind of decision off the cuff. And so we found that we had a lot of interest when we released it. We had hundreds of people that were interested in coming along. But we managed to have to book a place for about 60 people. And we were at the end 8 or 9.
Ooh, yeah.
So my wife had a great holiday.
I'm sure she did. Yes.
She was living her best life. And we lost about $90,000
yeah,
in that retreat. And that was a big lesson on pre-selling before booking. And it's something that I've done before, but I didn't apply at the time. I normally pre-sell and then create. At the time, we actually booked the venue, we did everything, and then we sold. And that left us no room to cancel. That we had just to go ahead and take our losses. And then we spend the next year recovering from that loss, because if you're thinking about it, you're taking over a business that earns $300,000. That's a third of the revenues, almost gone. So then that we had another year to recover from it. So it took us 2 years to get back to the same position where we were before after that retreat.
So the lesson there was pre-sell and make sure you got enough people to fill the venue, right?
And enough time to promote it.
Absolutely.
Doing something in international retreat, give at least 9 months, 9 to 12 months, start it a year in advance. Because
and I think it comes back to really a problem I see with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of small business owners is they get a brilliant idea, something they want to do, but they don't take the time to think into all of the steps necessary to create a successful event, whatever it is that they're putting on. And as a result of that, they shortcut because they think in the excitement of the moment, ready to go, that, everybody's going to be just as excited as they are. But you forget people have schedules. They've got to put the money together. They've got to be willing to make the investment and travel at that particular time. And that can be problematic, and then you may have an issue like we had. I run the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And in our event, we were 3 months into COVID here in the United States. So, here we booked a big hotel. We had, several hundred room nights we had reserved for the event. And lo and behold, Dallas, Texas is in the midst of, the throes of COVID. And the hotel we were going to use had been commandeered by the Department of Health. And they were storing the extra hospital workers they had brought in to deal with the crisis at the time. So our event got canned. And right after our event got canned, we reached out to the hotel to go through the process of getting our deposits back because of the force majeure issue in our contract. And in the midst of all that, the hotel went belly up. And so we ended up losing our entire investment on the front end of that. And we're now, 2 years past that, but just now, like you, getting back to where we're financially where we wanted to be as a result of that event not taking place and losing those deposits. So yeah, that can be a big deal. Now, Simone, I know you've done a TED Talk, and that's incredible. And I want to congratulate you for doing that. How did that come about, and what came in terms of visibility as a result of you having an opportunity to be on a TED Talk stage and getting an opportunity to present to that caliber of an audience?
It was a huge opportunity. It was a huge opportunity. Now, I gotta say, is a TEDx talk, not TED Talk. There is a difference between them. TED Talk is like invitation only. Mm-hmm. You're Elon Musk, you're Bill Gates, you go there. I wish one day I'll do a TED Talk. But I know I did the TEDx Talk, which are the more like more independent event. But still, the experience was nerve-wracking. But when I did the TEDx Talk, at that point, I think I've delivered at least more than 500 talks, 500 or 600 talks. So it was not new to me standing up, delivering workshop, delivering things on stage. But I think that I made it in my mind that it was so important and such a big deal that I kept procrastinating. And actually, I didn't have a talk ready until the night before. And my wife sat me down in the hotel room that we had. And she said, do you realize that you don't have a talk for tomorrow and that's your day? So yeah. So then I spent all night creating my talk. And it was an incredible piece, because that gave me at least another, that I can count from it, another at least 200 speaking engagements that came as a direct result of the TEDx Talk. Connections with the organizer, connections with the other speakers, and also the sense of affirmation that I was doing the right things. Because I was 26 when I delivered that TEDx Talk, and there is still that question mark. Am I am I doing the right things?
Mhm.
Or and this is a big part of my character, but I always have the sense that I've got something to prove. And in particular, before, I felt that I had everything to prove. And that's also why I think I made it such a big deal. But having that confirmation of being invited and speak on that stage and actually doing a great job and receiving incredible feedback, that was a big step in my personal self-esteem and personal self-confidence, of saying, you know what, you're on the right track. Keep going with this. So it's been so many benefits that came from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Simone, how many people that are entrepreneurs, especially young, you were 26 years old when you delivered that TEDx talk. How many younger individuals that may be listening to the podcast today question whether they're enough, that they really have what it takes, and they struggle with that imposter syndrome issue that you were dealing with in that moment? What did you have to do inside yourself to really get yourself from procrastinating to really stepping into that moment and owning that moment? What was that like for you?
That's what I said. That's why I said it was nerve-wracking. That's why I started saying it. There wasn't any magic process that I had to do. The talk was booked. So even if I felt ready for it or not, I had to deliver. Now, my saboteur in that moment, the thing that said, no, you're not ready, is what got me to procrastinate and not putting myself in the right situation with the right time and the right training to even maybe do an even better job. It's almost like was stopping me to go to that, to be ready to the next evolution, the next version of me, right? But sometimes when you put yourself, I think, in situations that are uncomfortable and you have no choice other than do it, then it forces you, whether you're ready or not, to really show if you're ready or not for that kind of opportunity. And I had similar situations like this. I remember the biggest one was an event when we did it with Les Brown in front of 1,000 people. At the time, I think I've run already a bit more than 300 events, and I've been invited to host and be the main MC to the event with Les Brown. I built a good relationship with the organizer. I helped her out a lot. I was part of the organizing team, and she said, you have MCing skills. I need help. Can you please do that? I was like, sure. And I think that was the year before TEDx. So I was 25 at that time. And I couldn't sleep the night before. I made sure I prepared, but I couldn't sleep the night before. And that was one of the biggest events in my career, because it was another confirmation and showed me what I was really capable of, what I could do with a crowd, that I was ready to take a big stage. Because I went from speaking to a stage to in front of like 100 people or 200 to 1,000. It's a big difference with Les Brown. So I think that sometimes when you just put yourself in those situations, whether you're ready or not, you test yourself. And that's the attitude that I have. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. and you lick your wounds.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have an opportunity to influence other people with what we do. You and I are unique in that space, that in the positions that we're in our respective businesses, we have an opportunity to speak into the lives of other people and allow them to learn from our life experience. I remember speaking personally, on small stages and having an opportunity to work my way up to the bigger stages. Well, one of my daughters works with the John Maxwell organization. She's a part of the John Maxwell team. Her very first speech that she ever did in terms of a public speech was at a John Maxwell International Leadership Conference to over 3,000 leadership coaches and trainers. And I'm sitting there in the back of the room watching my little girl walk up and thinking, she's 19 years old. She's speaking to 3,000 leadership people from around the world. And what an opportunity she's got to be able to see that she is capable of so much more than most 19, 20, 25-year-olds think of. And, if you look at where you've come from and you look at the successes you've seen, you've got a great message for young people that may not believe that they're enough, or they lack the confidence in themselves, or they're not sure what to do to really step out of that status quo, mediocre, comfortable place where they feel content, to really getting into that uncomfortable place where growth happens. Every time you've done that, what's been the result for you when you've put yourself out there and you've said, I'm going to get outside of my comfort zone and I'm going to go somewhere I'm uncomfortable and I know I've got to deliver. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. What's been that outcome for you?
Well, the outcome is varied, right? The outcome is varied. As I mentioned before, sometimes you win, sometimes you lick your wounds. And I've talked about, like, for the TEDx or the event with Les Brown, or even just changing country, coming to a new country. These were big events that actually worked out. But we talked also about the retreat. That was something that put me out of my comfort zone. That didn't work out. That was a big learning lesson, right? Or another one, which I think was even more difficult to digest for my ego, was I think 3-4 years ago, I was invited to speak in this huge international tech event, a huge international tech conference in Europe. It's like one of the biggest tech conferences in Europe. 6,000 people in the audience at that particular event. In my room during my presentation, I had about 600 in that moment. And the total event is about 6,000 people. My wife is the main host in the main room of the event. That's how I got in touch with them. And I was one of the most experienced speakers there, because a lot of them, they were either founders of companies, but they were not professional speakers. I pride myself to be a professional speaker. That's what I do. I speak, I train. And I was a bit overconfident. So I put myself in that situation and I said, yeah, I'm going to nail it. And I forgot to do the most basic thing that every speaker should do, which is understand your audience. Not every audience you're speaking to is the same. There are cultural differences. Audiences respond in different way. That particular conference is in Eastern Europe. They respond to a very different way, which an American audience would respond, or a UK audience would respond, or an Italian audience would respond. They're way more reserved. They're way more skeptical. They don't show a lot of. They're more inside. They will absorb, but you don't expect a lot of interaction unless you really work them. But at the end of time, at like 20-30 minutes. So it's not that you have a lot of time to build that relationship and to build them up in that way. And it was a car crash. I started a presentation with 600 people queuing up outside the room. It was one of the most attended sessions. I finished my presentation with, I think, about 30 people in the room. I could see while I was delivering people leaving the room, just like one by one, bam, bam. They were leaving and leaving and leaving because they had a choice, right? They could go to other talks. They chose to be in mine, and I didn't respect them enough to create something that will get them to stay. And it took me about 3 days to get over it. For 3 days, I couldn't, because I take pride in my work. I take pride in my skill. I take pride in the craft that I have. And it took me about 3 days to recover, where I couldn't do any work. I was just like a wreck. And it reminded me about the basics and about not being complacent and about not being overconfident. So sometimes you put yourself in a situation that they humbled you.
Yeah.
And that was one of them.
Yeah. As you were talking, it reminded me of a story I've heard John Maxwell share with me, where he had gone to a group that would have him come speak periodically. And he went to speak to the group, and he knew something wasn't right as he was speaking to the group. And as he came off the stage, the individual, thanked him for coming. And John commented, he said, something just wasn't right. And the individual told John, you delivered the same content that you delivered the last time you were here. And John had failed to check his notes to make sure that when he came back, he didn't deliver a message that he had previously delivered. And as a result of that, train wreck, exact same thing that you're talking about. And I appreciated what John shared with me that he did. He said he asked permission to go back to the group the next day and to apologize for not being prepared, and then offered to come back on his own dime to speak to that group and deliver what he should have delivered the first time. But that overconfidence and just not paying attention can be a bear. It can come up and really bite you in the butt in a bad way. Yeah.
Because then is another day at the office. I deliver, what's that? Like, sometimes like now online, sometimes I deliver 3 presentations a day. I deliver thousands of presentations, and it becomes sometimes another day in the office, right?
Yeah.
And it's about us reminding ourselves that it's not another day in the office,
Mm-hmm.
that in particular as educators, as trainers, as speakers, we have a duty to deliver and over deliver what
That's
the
right.
audience is expecting, and respect their time and why they're there, and the money that they've invested, or the time that they've invested.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard Carly Fiorina. I was with Carly Fiorina a couple of years ago, and she made a statement I thought was extremely powerful. She said, the status quo has great power, but leaders challenge the status quo to change things for the better. And I thought about that in terms of, hearing some of the stories we're sharing today, and the fact that it's very easy to fall into that status quo. This is the way I've always done it. I'm just going to show up and do what I've always done. And at that point, you don't over deliver. You don't wow the audience. You don't invite them into your world, and you don't go into their world and really make that connection that changes their lives. And I think that's where a lot of people fail in the area of, becoming that authority figure and that expert, is they expect you to over deliver every time you show up. They expect you to be the person when you show up. So, Simone, before we wrap up, take a minute and tell us about GTEX. I know we've seen the image up there in the corner. Tell us a little bit about your company and what you do and how you serve audiences.
Yeah, GTEX stands for Growing Together Exponentially. That's what GTEX stands for. And little anecdote on the side, we had to call the company GTEX because the original name was Growing Together Exponentially. And so our domain name was growingtogetherexponentially.com. My email address was simone@growingtogetherexponentially.com, which no one can spell. No one. Ask someone to type it without making any spelling mistake, all in one single line. I'll challenge you. So we actually, but that's the name of the company. So the ethos of GTEX is about doing things together, because we believe that together we can achieve more than we can do on our own, that we can do by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the work that we do is turning experts into authorities. So it's an incredible community of speakers, coaches, trainers, experts in their field. And they are there, first of all, to show up for each other, to support each other. And we support them in helping them creating their own communities, helping them increase their recurring revenue so they have the more stability in the business, and also increase their visibility so they can get seen and get known in their industry. And the whole idea is to get known, get paid, and make an impact. And that's the work that we do here at GTEX, and that our community comes together to achieve this incredible outcome and this incredible goal. And the vision that we have for the world, which is what brings us together here at GTEX, is to create a more inclusive and just world in which we can live in. So even though we deliver business training, everything we do is to take people from different backgrounds, make them to come together and create solutions for humanity in our own little way. And that's what GTEX is about.
I love what you're doing, because you're essentially making black belt masters at whatever that individual's chosen craft or trade or profession is. And you're helping them hone their skills so they truly become that master instructor, that master trainer, that master entrepreneur in that particular skill set that they have. And you allow them to create an opportunity to stand out from the crowd of everybody else doing something similar. So they're seen, recognized, and appreciated as an authority figure and an expert. So thank you for doing that. That is just, it's an area that is so needed today. Now, for individuals that want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way for them to connect with you, Simone?
Easiest way, go on the website, straight on the website, which is gtex.org.uk. So it's gtex.org.uk. And that's the best way. There you can find the free trainings. You can find our podcast, the Expert to Authority Show, which actually you're going to be, I think, on next week. If I remember well, yeah. So definitely you can check out John's episode there. You can see free resources and also the trainings that we run. So that's gtex.org.uk.
Fantastic. Well, I want to leave with one last question, Simone. If you think back over all of the lessons that you've learned from the time you got started to where you are today, what is the most valuable lesson that you have learned that if you could go back and have a conversation with a 10-year, 15-year earlier version of yourself, you would say, make sure you learn this early because it's made such a huge difference in your life. What would that one thing be?
Um, hmm, hmm. Can I have two?
You can have two. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna be greedy on this. The first one is like on a practical level. It's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. That has been one of the things that I had to step into, because for me, it was not difficult to make money, but I don't know why I was always broke. I always spend it all. So it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. That's the one thing that I really had to learn and embody over the years and create structures and systems in place for that. But the other thing, which is a lesson that has been a confirmation, actually, which I'm glad I did from the beginning, was the lesson of build your community and your community will build your business. Build your community will build your business. A lot of times people go into a business and then they think about how can I create a community that can serve my business instead of looking at things the other way around. So what are communities that I can serve? What relationships can I build? What can I create to add value to an existing community? And then building a business around what other people want. And that way you will always have clients. And so build your community will build your business.
That's a great lesson. You're adding value first before you attempt to subtract value from that group. And that's a brilliant way to look at really having an opportunity to scale business. Simone, I want to say thank you for taking some time to share with us today. I have really enjoyed the interview, and I've learned a few things about you that I didn't know that have been quite insightful. So I do look forward to furthering the conversation. Any last words you want to share before we wrap this up today?
I think as we are talking about mastery in this show and being a black belt leader, I think it's a consistent reminder of never being complacent, and that being a black belt and mastery is a day-to-day work. You're never arrived. You're always refining your skill. You do martial arts, you're always refining that punch.
That's right.
You're always refining that speech. You're always refining that program. So have that mindset of embodying mastery, and someone will notice you. It's just a matter of time.
That's right. Yeah. And the quality of what got you to where you are today, if you quit learning, you stop growing. And it reminds me of the story that Ray Kroc shared, where he says, as long as you're green, you're growing. But once you're ripe, you start to rot. Nobody wants to work with a rotten entrepreneur or a rotten business owner. But when we quit growing, that's exactly what happens. So Simone, thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking some time out to be with our audience. Look forward to hearing the responses, the folks that have an opportunity to hear what you shared and the challenges that you've been through, what you've learned from that. And I really do appreciate what you are doing to help people look within. And you have a unique ability to help people see something in themselves that they don't yet see in themselves. Just like that restaurant owner saw something in you that you didn't yet see in yourself. You've really positioned yourself well to help people discover what I like to call their own unique black belt leader within, and then help them cultivate that, develop it, and ultimately deploy it to make a difference in the world. So I want to say thank you for what you are doing. And I appreciate you coming on and being a part of our podcast today. I'm John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and I want to say thank you for joining us for this Master Your Life podcast. Don't just be a leader, be a Black Belt leader. Have a great day and live your life with Black Belt excellence. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care. Have a great, great day.